Namo Buddhaya. Hello and welcome. You have a couple more days left for us to talk before I, as mentioned previously, disappear. But I'm not really disappearing completely. Hopefully I will still be able to keep in touch, and it should be just for a few days. And some strange things I've dealt with have happened with regards to my being here just this last few days. Nothing bad, nothing to worry about, just things that I'm not used to dealing with these days as a monk, really, but had to be dealt with. And well, I dealt with them as best as I could, but I will say certainly I can look at that, criticize it, and say, hey, English monk, you really could have handled that situation better, not just as a monk, as a human being. We put that behind us. On the Uposatha, I spoke to my Sangha back in India, my monastic brethren, as we do, keeping in touch. And it is their support, really. It is the support of the Sangha that really does keep us going. And that's all of us, not just me as a monk. Hopefully you as lay people feel you have a Sangha or someone representative of a Sangha whom can support you also, even if you don't discuss your exact issues with them, just to know they're there, thinking of you with metta, karuna, mudita, helping you in your practice develop upekkha. These are the 4 Brahma Viharas: loving kindness, compassion, joy for others, and equanimity. But mutually, the Sangha, yourself, with refuge in the Triple Gem, the Buddha, our teacher, the Dharma, his teachings, and this noble Arya Sangha, his disciples of 2,567, nearly 68 years ago, and that long lineage of monks since then, passing down this tradition, these traditions in varying formats, schools, guises, appearance, with additions, with omissions, with extras, without, whatever it may be, it is all based on the basic and very sound teachings, which are quite straightforward, of the Buddha. This is our union. This is what we all have in common. So this is an extended Sangha, if you like. But for me to be able to have refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and my own Sangha, of which I am an ordained Bhikkhu and member, is of great support to me whenever I'm having any, not doubts about my practice. Of course, if I had doubts about my practice, that also, but more often than not, doubts about the way I handle things, more and usually in relation to sila, our very strict code of conduct, as in the Vinaya Pitaka, how we should lead our lives. So that support means that I can look to them and feel comforted in the knowledge that I have very experienced, long established teachers from a long lineage right back to the Buddha there and nearby that I can always look to for support. So this leads me to the first question, which is what does the Buddha say about competition or comparing one's self to another. Well, I can't think of anything offhand that the Buddha actually said, other than overall in what the Buddha's teachings are saying, in that we shouldn't really compare ourselves to others and consider anything a competition. The only comparison we need to ever draw our attention to is that of our own behaviour, our own acts of body, speech and mind, how we deal with things in life. And that comparison can be made over a period of time. So we can look at yesterday, how we behaved in a certain situation, and we might feel critical of the way we handled it. Maybe we could have spoken more softly. Maybe we could have been kinder in our approach. But then we can take that criticism back in time, 1 month, 3 months, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and ask ourselves, how would I have behaved in that very same set of circumstances and situation then? And this is how we measure our progress. This is how we gauge, compare how we were to how we are. What is going on in the present moment is all we have, here and now. So what is to be happening in the future, or what has happened in the past, is not relevant. It can be learned from. We learn from our mistakes. We endeavour, we try, we determine not to make such mistakes again. Maybe to think twice before speaking. Maybe to think 3 times, 4 times, 5 times before speaking, in my case. But saying that, how would we have been some years ago before taking on board the teachings of the Buddha and beginning this practice? So overall, if we go around trying to compare ourselves and looking at competition, all that can actually really be compared are materialistic or physical aspects. So for instance, in terms of competition, physical attributes of the body, skills, techniques, intellectual ability, knowledge. Of course, none of this is permanent. This is all subject to anicca, impermanence. And as a result of that is only ultimately the cause of suffering. However fit and healthy you are now, you will not be always. And that is out of our control, anatta. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. These are the characteristics of existence. So your peers in life and those you look up to, your mentors in life, are maybe from your perspective, better than you, but only by way of drawing those comparisons to how you are now, how they are now. But at some point in the future, you won't be here, they won't be here, they will be parted from all they have, you will be parted from all you have. Entropy, all things are deteriorating, even intellectual knowledge will be gone. So we don't draw these comparisons. There's no skill, no positive aspects of. We can look up to our teachers and aspire to be like them by way of their what are invisible qualities. So our teacher, the Buddha, with ultimate unconditional metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha, a fully enlightened being, is perhaps the greatest aspiration. It is what we look up to. It is our goal to become enlightened as him. And this, however, is to be taken as a light to head towards, something to guide us towards, not to belittle, not to put down, not to devalue what we have already achieved in the meantime. We might have been a runaround, wretched rogue and improved so much, but still struggling with the practice. But we've come so far. This is what we congratulate ourselves on. This is how we pat ourselves on the back. We don't say, but that our teacher is so much better than us, do we? So why do we say the person next to me practicing is better, or working in the desk by the side of me, or running in the race in front of me? Why are they better than you? Only because at that moment you're seeing what they are doing in their moment compared to yours. But you are so much better than you were before if you are practicing. That is, if you're keeping moral virtue, you're practicing meditation and you're developing skillful mind states, reducing unwholesome mind states. So there is no competition, and there is no need to compare yourself to anyone else. But aspire to your teachers, as long as they are teaching along the lines of the enlightened Buddha, and you try to develop those qualities in yourself. And then the only comparison that needs to be drawn upon is how you have improved since a while ago, a little while ago, a long while ago, and way back in the future. Now, I might have answered that question once before, but in a different way, maybe. So sometimes the same questions come up, but that's okay. That's the Dharma, because we are all asking the same questions which are about the other side of Dharma, which is life and living in samsara, how we deal with it. Seems quite busy here today, doesn't it? So the next one, is this in Thailand? So I'm not quite sure what video that's referring to, but I remember it could have been, but I don't think it was. I haven't got the picture. I've hidden my mobile phone out of sight. You can't see it on here. It's our secret. It's because otherwise I get these comments about, so monks have mobile phones now. Monks use mobile phones. Well, this is how this is done. But if I keep it out of sight, I don't get those comments, because that is a question, that is a comment that comes up quite regularly, but it doesn't ever seem to be approached in a kind way. It's as a criticism. And the truth of the matter is we don't really have mobile phones, but we can use them for skillful purposes. As in the olden days, monks, nuns, whatever, could use pens and paper or read books. We can all go to libraries in the past, before we had smartphones. But what you read when you go to the library is what's important, not the fact you've gone to the library. Now, if you read material that's going to develop wholesome mind states and reduce unwholesome mind states, then it's rather useful to go to the library, and that we wouldn't have been criticised. But even when I think they brought out automatic printing presses, we had people called Luddites who went round wrecking them by throwing their shoes into the mechanism to stop them working, stop them printing, because they were against advances in technology, thinking it would put everyone out of work. And to some extent it did, but it gave people other roles and jobs in life eventually. But in respect to monks and mobile phones, I agree they shouldn't be, I shouldn't be using them for anything other than perhaps, well, I use it for research, the little reading I do these days. It's not in book form because they are quite difficult to carry around. So you can appreciate the Sutta Pitaka is huge. You can't really carry that around if you're travelling a lot. Or even if you're not travelling, if you're staying put, that would become very damaged in a very short while. It's very humid in these environments. They're no longer on parchment, and we don't keep them in big cabinets which have got humidifiers and stuff. Books really don't work so well in the forest and in the rainy seasons. But we can have access to all of the suttas these days on smartphones. Even without internet, we can have so much material downloaded, and chanting books and this kind of thing. But of course, for this purpose, I'm not really sure there's another way of doing it as a single one person on your own. The only other way of doing this would be having a whole lot more technology and stuff, which you would have to, in my case, learn how to use. It would have to be bought, it would have to be acquired, and, well, who wants it? This is very simple. A little phone that you can pack away in your bag when you go off travelling and get it out again at the other end, and you've got your chanting book, the sutras and everything to hand. So for that reason, yes, monks do use mobile phones, but they're not part of our requisites, our 8 requisites. They are items which we're allowed to use, that people have given us for that purpose, for skillful use. So this question, is this in Thailand? No, I don't think that video was in Thailand, but actually I'm going to be in Thailand very soon in the next few days, because I'm going there for a short while. And hopefully when I'm there, I'll be able to bring you some, continue with these talks from another location. But these locations vary because I've moved around, and there's another question coming up in relation to that, so maybe I won't go into it too much more. So it's quite a long question, but we'll go for it. I have been raising stray cats in a village in South Korea since they were babies. Wow. Now the village elders want me to give up the cats, stop feeding them, or I have to leave the house. Thankfully, there is a lady nearby on a farm who will take them in. I've become attached to the cats. They are beautiful beings. How can I overcome having to part with these cats that have taught me so much about caring, love and compassion? Before I had them, I was quite self-centered, but the cats helped me to understand the love that compassion teaches. I'm sad to part with them, but I know it is life. I'm just having a tough time letting go. What can you say about this? Well, I understand. You see, this is a wonderful thing, metta. It's a real thing that we should do with people. We can't just sit on the meditation saying, I am exuding metta to the person next to me a bit further away and radiating metta. But really we should be developing this quality of metta, karuna, these qualities of metta, karuna, mudita and upekkha within ourselves. But metta is a quality, the first of these 4 Brahma Viharas, we develop within ourselves. And some of us have a hard time doing that. There are personality types, they say. And I think it's quite true that there are some whom have a tendency towards greed and more the desire, some who have a tendency towards anger and hatred, and others who have a tendency towards a bit of confusion. So greed, hatred and delusion, the 3 root defilements, can also be the 3 personality types. Now if you have you're more inclined towards the middle one, hatred, not hatred as in you hate everybody, but you'll tend to react, be angry a little when things don't go your way, then you might not be so inclined towards metta as a practice. But if you have a desirous nature, a lot of greed, then you can be a little bit more inclined towards metta. So one has to understand this when you start practicing metta, not to fuel what is a desire, not an unwholesome desire, but a desire that is there nevertheless. And work on the defilements with whatever you're developing. So if you're of an angry nature, like me, and you really need to work on that, so you need to practice a lot of metta. And I found a very good way of doing that was with animals, with creatures, with pets. Not pets so much, because monks don't have pets, but the wild animals I had surrounding me when I was in India, and a lot of cows that I had in India. You'll see many of the videos feature cows back in the early days of this channel, because they were such kind and loving creatures, and they were all around. and then more latterly, even reptiles and such like in Thailand, geckos, which I became very friendly with because they were my companions through many a long, dark, lonely nights in the jungle. And you get to know them. And if you develop metta towards all of these creatures, you eradicate fear, which comes under that second of the root defilements. Fear is sort of akin with hatred. It's not wanting. It's really the attachment to control. And fear is when we have no control. Fear is as a result of having sakkaya ditthi, or an opinion of oneself as being something that is important, as opposed to just this result of causes and conditions, and what you've put in place in the past is what you are now. When we hold too tightly to that, we can have a lot of fear that we might lose that. And this is part of the letting go thing. So all of these things come into play when you're looking at this situation. Now what we can do is we can look at the facts. We all will be parted from those that we love, those that we hold dear, as they will be parted from us. This is a fact. We're all subject and brothers and sisters in aging, sickness and death. This is a fact. And this is the same with our pets, whom also usually live a lot shorter lives than ourselves. And we go through many pets in our lifetimes. I mean, I would discourage having pets just for the sake of it. It's often a case you might adopt a pet that comes in and you look after for a while, as I am continually doing. And I've had to get used to parting company from them. The advantage with cats, and to some extent the dogs in some Asian countries, because they're more feral, more wild, but cats, especially here, are very feral. They're not domesticated, living in houses. They go from house to house and stay within their jurisdiction, their little area. And when you move, they don't follow you. They wait for someone else to go in that house that might feed them, but they have a few houses that look after them. So you learn to sense and see their behaviour. Now cats are very self-sufficient, independent creatures. That's why they are such wonderful animals to have around. And they do really help you with developing metta, as you've described, developing compassion and understanding the benefits of that. And it seems that you've benefited so much from their company as they have yours, but you don't need to see it as letting go permanently. Nothing, all conditioned things are impermanent, and even that which we're parted from, in the next life you will meet up with them again. Even within this life, I still meet up with previous friends of mine. The cat from the last place where I was staying, I see on Pindapata every day on Arms Around, and you will bump into these acquaintances in other places. So it is tough, but these are things we get used to, and this is the practice also. It's the developing of panya, wisdom, the understanding of these three characteristics of existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta, but that we are all subject to aging, sickness and death. We will be parted from the ones we love as they will us. Okay. So in one of your questions and answers, could you explain why you moved from India to Thailand to Sri Lanka, and what you thought of each place and pros and cons of living in each one as a Westerner? Thank you. So that's, yes, well, actually, mainly the reason I've continually moved about is visa reasons, because you can't just go and live in a foreign country and stay there. That's it. You can, and I was practically through the process of getting a more permanent situation visa in Thailand, but it was necessary for me to go back to India for the Rains retreat, and it has become, I've become accustomed to now the fact that I do have to move from time to time. Now, it is my intention to try and not travel from place to place, to stay put in one place, and I have chosen this as such a place. Whether that will be possible, one can never know. We don't even know. We have to apply for these visas for certain amounts of time, but you're only allowed to stay in a country for a certain period of time, then you have to leave and you come back. But of course we don't know whether we will be here living tomorrow, whether we'll be alive in the next hour. But assuming we're alive for a little bit longer, we can make plans and put provisions in place to stay. And that's what I'm doing, going to Thailand for this brief time to renew my visa here and return for a bit longer this time without having to go anywhere. And this is something that we have to do. As far as drawing comparisons, I don't... living in India, where I lived for 3 years, Thailand previously to India for quite some time, off and on, and then recently for 7 months in Thailand, and here now I've been here for 6 months, they're also very different. So I wouldn't compare. There is nothing there to be compared because they are different cultures. What remains the same are those characteristics of existence, are the core teachings of the Buddha and how we practice. And this is the consistency we take with us when we move from one place to another. So you ask me, as living in each one as a Westerner, I don't actually think of myself as anything or a Westerner. Now, of course, I'm seen. I don't see myself. I mean, there's no mirrors in here, but I'm seen as a different coloured being. I don't see myself as that because, you know, I just assume I'm the same as everybody else when I'm walking around here. But of course, I might be seen as that by them, but I don't feel that I'm treated that differently other than I would be as a monk in any other place. You're going to, like this, draw a little more attention, maybe, than ordinarily dressed as a tourist, wherever you may be. However, I think even as a tourist ordinarily dressed, then you'll be drawing a little more attention. As a monk, I think perhaps you won't be... people will see you as probably someone who knows where they're going, knows what they're doing, and won't need to have to help you so much as they might be keen to do with visiting people who are on their holidays. So I don't get people coming up to me saying, do you want to go on this trip, that trip, see this, go here to this restaurant, because they know I'm a monk. And they're familiar with Buddhist culture here. And that's the same with Thailand. India is so diverse in its cultural influences, religions, and they are so used to different kinds of sadhus, monks, vagrants, mendicants, people of all descriptions. Nothing phases anyone there. It's a very free and relaxed place to be in that sense. But I don't compartmentalize myself into saying, oh, a Westerner is better off going to India, Thailand or Sri Lanka, because I guess I'm a Westerner and I haven't experienced anything different really in any one of the places. I see differences in the way the Buddhist world is in these places, because after all, India now is not really a Buddhist country, whereas Thailand and Sri Lanka are Buddhist countries. But like the UK is not a Buddhist country, you can find places where Buddhism is practiced very, very purely and very devotedly. So that's why I move around a lot and why I'm about to move again, but I'm hopefully coming straight back here. So, and I mean, it's partly because of some complications with talking about visas that I was referring to earlier, because this is an area that we try not to get too involved with. We just do the bare minimum that we need to do to satisfy the requirements of the local authorities and the governments and the legislation of the country that we're in, and make sure that we do everything absolutely properly. And it can get a little bit, there are some grey areas when it comes to being a monk when you're traveling, as opposed to being a lay person when you're traveling. When you're a lay person, you're traveling, you either are a tourist or you're working. So you have a tourist visa or some sort of working visa. The question always arises, well, what is a monk? They're not working, but they're not really tourists, are they? So it's a bit of a grey area, and this can be a little, as I'm experiencing here, problematical, but not insurmountable. So one has to just treat with the greatest respect whatever their view is of the matter, and adhere to whatever they insist you adhere to in order to comply with their regulations, because it is, after all within sila, within the parameters of our code of conduct. So that's all that matters, really. What does practicing the Eightfold Path look like? Avoiding conflict and situations that go against the Eightfold Path. Question. So, well, you know, practicing Sila Samadhi Panya, which is summing up the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path is right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right meditation. And three categories are Sila, moral virtue, Samadhi, meditation, Panya, wisdom. Wisdom is the first of that Noble Eightfold Path, right view. Understanding what I've just been talking about, the characteristics of existence. That's what it looks like. Someone leading a morally virtuous life, someone practicing meditation to develop their minds, to learn to develop qualities of mind like metta, karuna, mudita and upekkha, powers of focus, concentration, developing mindfulness throughout all of their daily activities so that their actions are closely monitored by themselves with knowing all that they're saying, knowing all they're doing, and knowing what they're thinking about and how that affects their next word, their next action. This is mindfulness. That's what it looks like. And this teaches us to avoid conflict, to avoid those situations that go against that practice, go against moral virtue, go against anything that might encourage you or lead you mistakenly to break a precept. So for instance, the fifth precept, taking intoxicants, alcohol for instance, is a precept, so you wouldn't break it anyway. But if you do, the problem with it is it's not morally abhorrent or something like that. It's in fact positively encouraged in many countries. However, you might well be, as a result of a lack of mindfulness through drinking alcohol or taking intoxicants, break one of the other precepts of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct or lying. And if you were to break any of those, then it's more serious. But really you should consider number 5 of taking intoxicants probably the most serious, because it's directly affecting the Noble Eightfold Path, because it's affecting mindfulness, sati, samasati, and therefore the ability to focus, meditate, concentrate, samadhi, samasamadhi, right mindfulness and right meditation. So with this in mind, I mean, that's what it looks like. I'm not sure I understand what that means. That's what a person practicing the Noble Eightfold Path is trying to achieve. They're trying to achieve contentment, a reduction of unwholesome mind states through the development of wholesome mind states, through good actions. So, for instance, encouraging and developing generosity and kindness, and then developing those acts, those 4 Brahma Viharas of metta, karuna, mudita, and equanimity, upekkha. So, yeah, I don't understand that question. Someone quoting something weird. Not weird, something I don't understand, so it's weird to me. How long did it take for you to learn all of the chants? Oh, I haven't. I'm on the line 2 of the dedication of offerings. Yeah, that's fair enough. No, I've never really sat down to try and learn them, because I think the older you get, the harder that is. But I suppose that I could be using that as an excuse, and I'm inherently lazy. I've not ever during my practice wanted to waste time sitting learning stuff. Although it can be a good exercise of mindfulness and a way of developing samadhi and concentration. But if you're able to develop samadhi and concentration without aids, without tools, which can be useful if you're not able to, then you're going to just enjoy the benefit of being able to experience samadhi, jhanas and this. You're not going to want to sit there reciting and learning lines if you can enjoy the jhanas. But in terms of chanting, you are doing it as a monk so often, they sink in. And however, that's not a great way of learning, because as I experience, sometimes I'll have just a mental block. I think I know the core sequences, so the most usually chanted verses, and I'll be chanting one, and then suddenly it's gone. And I'm on the spot, and that can happen. So maybe if you do sit and study and learn properly, and someone's explained some techniques for doing that, learning a couple of lines, just that alone each day, and really letting it sink in, this is a good thing to do. And it does help exercise the powers of concentration. I came to Buddhism generally late in life. I came to this practice late in life. I've taken in a way, as best I can, a shortcut towards my goal of becoming free from suffering in this lifetime by ordaining, and also taking the more ascetic approach to my practice, living by some of the Dhutanga allowed ascetic practices, such as living in places like this with just one set of robes and eating one meal a day in one serving, sitting out of my bowl just from Pindapata, this kind of things, to really help burn away the defilements of greed, hatred and delusion, so desire, and focus on meditation. So in that respect, some of the things that if we have more time in our lives to practice and use to train the mind more gently, I've put aside and not spent much time learning all of the chanting. So although you might think that I know all the chanting, I don't. The bit of chanting I do know that I regularly chant is because I regularly chant it and have done in different sanghas in different countries, because it's the bits that are the same. But then when I go to different places, it's different. So I usually use the chanting book of that place, wherever they may be, in order that I can comply with their own traditions, their own cultural differences, because the actual core chants themselves are from the Pali teachings, from the suttas, and really are the same. It's just the surrounding bits that are a little bit different. So in this morning chanting here, I keep it very basic. That's my own version. It's just the paying homage to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, the qualities of the triple gem, and then whilst I'm here, I chant their devotional offerings chants, which are to the Buddha Rupa, the Bodhi trees, the incense, candles and flowers, and the dedication of merits to those departed, which is something that's commonly done here. Now in India we chant all of that and a lot more, and some suttas and some paritas and all of these things. Quite a lot of chanting we do there, and that's a really good way of relaxing the mind, letting it settle, focusing the attention on listening, what your mouth's doing, and that way you do learn. So over the last few years I've learned some chanting that way. But yeah, I'm not the best person to teach you about learning stuff off by rote, because I'm so bad at it. Okay, next question. Does a person have to be pure and virtuous to have psychic powers? Are the psychic powers that are the psychics that charge money for their services likely to be actually psychic? Perhaps I Does a person have to be pure in virtue? So I'm not going to talk about psychic powers particularly. The only powers we need to be concerned about are the iddhipada, the powers of concentration, mindfulness, virtue. I can't think of them all. There's five. Samadhi, sati, mindfulness, the powers that are invoked upon us through practicing the Noble Eightfold Path is powerful enough. Being able to levitate, being able to read minds, being able to see all over the universe, travel interstellar distances is of no use whatsoever to becoming free from suffering in this lifetime. We need to stay put and concentrate inwardly on our own practices of calming, allowing the mind to calm, become peaceful and tranquil, allowing the body to settle and relax, and to develop this seeing clearly, vipassana, samatha, tranquility and peace of mind through the practice of sila, samadhi, panya. This is all we need to know. As far as are they likely to be actually psychic if they're charging money, I'd say not, because why would they need to charge money? If you're psychic, you can surely find all manner of ways of making considerable amounts of money without charging for services of psychic abilities. It has to be some sort of trick, I would suggest, for financial gain. Can the Asubha practice help with letting go of being too concerned with looks and aging? Well, yes, that's certainly partly what Asubha practice is. Asubha is just focusing on the unbeautiful nature of things. So if you're really overly concerned with your own looks, then, hang on, let me be a bit more sensitive about this. Being too concerned with your own looks and aging. I think really what one needs to do is not use Asubha for that. No, that might make you a little bit sad. Asubha is when we have a lot of desire. So if we're not concerned about our looks, we think we're very beautiful and we think that we're going to be healthy and fit forever, and we have a very desirous nature, then we use Asubha as an off-putting thing. Asubha is focus or bringing our attention towards the unbeautiful. That's what it means. Beautiful Subha, beautiful, not beautiful. So if we see something as attractive, arousing, exciting, if we look at the unbeautiful nature of that, so for instance, someone with beautiful hair, if you think of the hair shaved off and put in the wash hand basin, it is no longer beautiful. It is in fact quite unsightly. Beautiful fingernails cut off on the floor, unsightly. You know, this is Asubha practice. But if you're concerned with your own looks and aging, what one has to be focusing on is anicca, dukkha, anatta. The fact that all conditioned things are impermanent, unsatisfactory and not self. And understanding that we are all subject to aging, sickness and death. And all conditioned things are impermanent in that respect, but as beings, as human beings, we do not retain these looks. You have to just understand that that is what it is, just that. This is the Dharma, this is the truth, this is the fact that there is suffering, there is a cause of suffering, an end of suffering, the path leading to the end of suffering, the Buddha's Four Noble Truths. The cause of suffering is desire, and the desire to not age and the desire to maintain your looks is going to be a huge cause of suffering, because it is impossible not to age, it is impossible not to lose your good looks. People can have all kinds of treatment, as you've probably seen, but it will not last. They still will age, get sick and die. So you just have to know the reality, see the truth of life, and don't fool yourself by looking in the mirror and thinking I look great. Look in the mirror and yes, say that's the way it is. Not as it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, this is how it is now. And that's all that matters. It doesn't need to be contemplated. It's not something to practice. Those two things are a little separate. I can't make it move. Maybe that's telling me I've had enough time. I have a question about needing to go to the restroom during meditation. Should one observe the need saying feeling, 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 or see the need more seriously and taking a break from meditation, go to the restroom? I ask because this seems important for longer stretches of meditation that go for hours and hours. Okay, so this is, firstly, I've never had this as a problem. I can honestly say in my years of meditation, I've never had going to the bathroom, the restroom as being a hindrance. Discomfort, numbness, mosquito, all sorts of things, but never wanting to go to the toilet. You go to the toilet before you sit to meditate. And you don't sit in the meditation center, hall, or the temple, drinking gallons of water, as I so often do see, just beforehand. That is going to have one result, you wanting to go to toilet. So I know there's this big thing about rehydration all of the time, but if you want to sit and meditate, or you're going on a long bus journey, save your rehydration for another occasion, because you will not make it. You cannot go on a bus for 8-9 hours where there is no opportunity to go to toilet if you fill yourself up with bottles and bottles of water before getting on that bus. You need to get on that bus quite thirsty. Perhaps it's not the most healthy way to live, but if it's a part of your life, that's what you have to do. And with meditation, you'll see that in these talks, you'll see I'm not drinking anything. I'll have something to drink afterwards. And maybe beforehand a little, and then you go to the toilet and then you sit. So this is also mindfulness about what you're doing in life. There's this tendency to habitually drink, and you can drink too much, you know. You don't need to, just drink what you need. If you're thirsty, yes, you do need to drink, but if there's something to do, if you're sitting in meditation for a long time, then that's not the time to fill yourself up with water. I mean, if you have a problem with this, a medical problem, you need to talk to the doctor about it, because I don't know about that. But noting it, saying feeling, 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 yes, I suppose so, but it would be better not to just want to be going to the bathroom when you sit to meditate anyway. You've eaten, drunk, done something too much prior to meditation. That's all I can really suggest. If you're taking a break, then there's no to go to the bathroom. Then you're not meditating. So you've defeated the object. So yes, just use a little bit of whatever we might want to just think about it. Be mindful. Okay, I think as the next question, let's see one more short one. No, they're getting longer. So I think that should be sufficient talking for today. Thank you for watching. I hope there's something there that's useful. If you can use it, please apply it to your practice. And I wish you very much success, but may your practice be fruitful. May you enjoy it. May you have results here and now. See the benefits of practice in all that you're doing in that direction. And anything useful, use it. Anything not, just let it go and don't think about it anymore. And please share with others if you feel inclined to do so, because then you're also helping them. Thank you for watching. Be happy, stay well, Sukhi Hotu.